Today I want to talk about pH. It's probably one of the most important parts of all of this to have successful growing of things. And it's just something that it's really easy to understand once you understand it. pH is a measure of how acid or how alkaline something is. It's on a scale that goes from 0 to 14. Anything that's down on the 0 end of the scale is very acidic and it's very damaging. Anything on the 14 end of the scale is very basic or alkaline, and that's equally damaging. It's just in the opposite direction. Right in the middle, at a pH of 7, that is neutral, and that's where close to where we want to be. Normal water, rainwater, distilled water, is at a pH of 7. And so we need to know, if we're growing things, what our pH is so that our plants have what they want to have. If you have a well, there may be a natural pH to that water, or if your city is treating the water with chemicals, also it may be a different kind of pH. So what I want to do is I want to show you how we're going to adjust that pH just a little bit so you can give the plants just what they need, no matter where your water is coming from. I'm going to use just regular tap water. And if you're not familiar with testing pH, basically what we want to do is we want to take a drop of the water or dip our test strip in the water, and that's going to change this to a certain color, and it's going to tell us what the pH is. And then we're going to compare it with the color chart on here to see what our natural water is. One of the things that most plants need is they need a pH somewhere about 6 to 6.5, which is just slightly acidic off of neutral 7. So what we're going to do is we're going to just dip this in for 1 or 2 seconds, and then we're going to see if it changes color. So there is the original color there, and that's the color that we're changing to. And if I hold this up here to our color chart, it looks like we're probably between a 6 and a 7 or something like that. I'm going to do that in a second way, and I'll show you how we do this. These kits are more convenient if you're going to be doing this often, and they're on the website as well. This is just a little vial, and this is some pH test indicator solution. So in this case, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to just take a little bit of water. Instead of a test strip, we're going to just drop a drop or two in here and shake it up. And that's going to give us a little different color because it's a different indicator with a different scale. And once again, we're going to compare it to the color here on the test bottle. And it looks like we're probably at about a 7 or something like that. This is called pH up, and that means that if a solution is too acidic, we can add a little bit of this and it will bring the pH up. So I'm going to show you what happens. We'll put just a teaspoon here in normal water. Let's take a sample of this water now, and we're going to test it and just see how it is. And we're going to put in a couple test drops, indicators. And we'll put the cap on and shake it up. And you can see how much different that is. And if you look on the bottle, we're going to see where that falls into the category. And now we're way up to like an 8.5. And if we want to change that, let's say our water shows up as being that way. We can do just the opposite now, and we can take pH down now, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to change the pH on this as well. And now we can take one of our indicator strips, and let's put our solution in our indicator again and see what happens. And shake it up. And now we see that we're way too acid. And if we look at our scale here on the bottle, we're at like a 4, which is just too acid for a plant to grow in. By using the pH up and down, we can control how much get the correct pH is for the plants. Again, what we really want is we want a neutral pH, which is about 6 to 7, 6 to 6.5. Things will go great in. So we're going to take one of our test strips now and do that and just see how this measures. And again, we can see that's changed color pretty good, and we can come down there and match it in, and yep, we're right at about a 4. So that's too acidic. So whether we're using test strips or whether we're using an indicator like this, we want to get right in this 6 to 7 range of what we're doing. And this stuff is great. It's pretty cheap. You can get this on the website or maybe even at any plant store. And we want to get you so things are growing well. If you haven't had success in growing some of these things, it's possible because your pH is off. Most water systems probably are keeping a neutral pH. They're not going to give you drinking water that's too acidic or too basic. So you're probably safe in that range. So if you're mixing your solution a gallon at a time in a gallon milk jug, you're going to get, so once you've made it one time, you don't have to keep checking your pH every time. So for instance, for my water system right now, I add 2 teaspoons full of grow solution every time, and I add 1 teaspoon full of pH up. And that gets me right to where I need to do it. And I never really, once I've tested the water, I really just don't need to test it again. And then you just duplicate it every time and fill up. So just to review everything, what we want is we want a pH for our plants to be about 6 to 6.5 on the pH scale. In your kit, go ahead and use your test strips and just test the water that you have that's coming right out of your faucet if that's what you're using. And if you find that it's right in that 6 to 7 range, you're probably just fine. If you find that it's a little more acidic or more basic than that, then you might need to adjust that a little bit for your plants to really start growing. So again, if you haven't had any luck in growing some plants, you may need to just check the pH. So if you don't have these things right here, you can use a little bit of lemon or you can use baking soda. If you need to make things more acidic, just squeeze maybe a teaspoon of lemon into your gallon of water. That's going to make it more acidic and lower the pH. If you need to make it more basic and it's too acidic and you need to bring it up, maybe a teaspoon or a half teaspoonful of baking soda in. This is more alkaline, and that's going to bring the pH up just a little bit. Between all of this, you should get your water just right and the plants are going to be just healthy. And again, once you've done this once, you really don't need to do this every time. You can just make your solution following what it is and you're going to be just great.